The deep space mining ship hummed with a peculiar combination of technological precision and casual indifference. Starlight streamed through reinforced viewports, casting a soft glow across the bridge of the Horizon Breaker. Captain Elena Rodriguez occupied the command chair with an ease that suggested she was equally comfortable here as she would be in a coffee shop back on Earth. Holographic displays flickered around her, a constellation of data points tracking mineral compositions, stellar drift, and system diagnostics. To her left, navigation specialist Marcus Wong manipulated three-dimensional star charts with practiced swipes, his movements smooth and almost absent-minded. A half-empty energy drink balanced precariously on the edge of his console, a testament to the crew's relaxed approach to their high-stakes mission. The ship's current objective was straightforward: locate and extract rare mineral deposits in unexplored regions of deep space. Conventional wisdom suggested such missions were risky, but the Horizon Breaker's crew had long since abandoned conventional wisdom as a limiting concept. They were prospectors of the cosmic frontier, equal parts scientists, engineers, and modern-day explorers. "Preliminary scans are looking promising," Marcus called out, zooming into a particularly dense cluster of asteroids. "Spectral analysis shows significant concentrations of rare Earth elements. Definitely worth a closer investigation." Chief Engineer Sarah Nakamura leaned over his shoulder, her augmented reality interface projecting additional data streams. "Those composition readings are fascinating," she muttered, more to herself than to anyone else. "The molecular structure suggests these aren't typical asteroid formations." No one on the bridge seemed particularly concerned about venturing into uncharted territory. This was just another day at the office, if the office happened to be millions of kilometers from the nearest human settlement, surrounded by infinite darkness and unknown potential. A subtle vibration ran through the ship's hull as the main mining arms extended. Precision-engineered robotic appendages stretched out, each movement calculated and smooth. Sophisticated scanning lasers began mapping the asteroid's surface, identifying the most efficient extraction points with machine-like accuracy. Deep in the ship's core, massive processing units hummed with computational power. Adaptive algorithms continuously adjusted mining parameters, balancing resource extraction with minimal environmental impact. It was a delicate dance of technology and scientific methodology, performed with the same casual expertise one might use to make a perfect cup of coffee. No one noticed the initial sensor blip. A massive energy signature appeared momentarily on the long-range scanners, then vanished just as quickly. Marcus blinked, recalibrated the sensors, and continued his work. The ship's advanced filtering systems had been programmed to ignore potential anomalies unless they posed a direct threat. Outside, unknown to the crew, a massive vessel materialized. Its design was unlike anything human engineers had ever conceived, a living testament to technologies far beyond current human understanding. Sleek yet organic, with surfaces that seemed to shift and breathe, the ship dwarfed the Horizon Breaker like a whale beside a small fishing boat. Inside the bridge, the mining operation continued uninterrupted. Laser cutters began their precise work, breaking down rocky structures with mathematical precision. Extraction pods prepared to collect the valuable minerals, their internal systems already calculating storage and processing protocols. "Interesting geological formation," Sarah commented, reviewing the initial data streams. "These mineral deposits don't match any known asteroid belt characteristics. We might be looking at something completely new." Captain Rodriguez nodded, her attention split between the mining operation and a partially completed crossword puzzle. An old-fashioned paper puzzle lay beside her digital displays, a quirky reminder of human preferences that persisted even in the depths of space. The massive alien vessel drew closer, its communication systems preparing to broadcast a standard Imperial intercepting protocol. Complex linguistic algorithms stood ready to translate first contact messages, prepare defensive strategies, and establish diplomatic parameters. On the Horizon Breaker, nobody looked up. The mining lasers continued their work, extracting resources with methodical precision. Another day of exploration, another potential scientific discovery, completely unaware of the extraordinary encounter about to unfold. Sub-Commander Krelax of the Imperial flagship Celestial Prominence experienced something unprecedented in their meticulously documented career: complete bewilderment. The communication protocols were clear. The massive warship had emerged precisely according to Imperial interception standards, its presence alone typically inducing immediate submission from any encountered species. Yet the human vessel continued its mining operations with an infuriating lack of concern. The communication chamber of the Zarkonian flagship bustled with controlled tension. Holographic displays flickered with translation matrices, linguistic algorithms spinning complex webs of potential communication strategies. Krelax's tentacle-like appendages moved across multiple sensory interfaces, each motion precise and calculated. "Initiate primary communication sequence," Krelax commanded, their voice resonating through the chamber's advanced acoustic systems. The communication officer, a seasoned veteran named Vornak, activated the primary transmission channel. A complex series of electromagnetic pulses, mathematical sequences, and harmonic frequencies began broadcasting. A standard Imperial First Contact protocol designed to demonstrate technological superiority and establish immediate hierarchical dominance. Jack Chen, the human communication specialist, didn't seem to notice anything unusual. He continued munching on a nutrient bar, its metallic wrapper crinkling softly against the ship's communication console. Crumbs scattered across holographic displays that continued tracking mineral extraction patterns. One hand absently brushed away the debris while the other manipulated incoming transmission data. "Weird signal," Jack muttered to himself, adjusting a few parameters. "Looks like some kind of complex mathematical broadcast. Probably just stellar interference." The Zarkonian communication team watched in mounting disbelief. Their most sophisticated communication protocol was being treated like background noise. Vornak's neural connections began to overheat from the sheer impossibility of the situation. Imperial First Contact procedures demanded a specific sequence of responses: acknowledgement of superior technological presence, immediate submission, request for guidance. This human response, or rather, lack of response, violated every known interstellar communication protocol. "Sub-Commander," Vornak reported, mandibles clicking with barely contained frustration. "The human vessel is not responding to standard communication sequences." Krelax's bioluminescent markings pulsed with a color combination indicating extreme confusion, a rare emotional state for a species priding itself on absolute emotional control. "Clarify. Are the communication channels malfunctioning?" "Negative," Vornak responded. "Transmission received. Signal clarity is 99.7% perfect." The humans simply seem uninterested. Jack Chen chose that moment to take another bite of his nutrient bar, completely oblivious to the existential crisis he was causing in an advanced alien communication center. He tapped a few buttons, running a routine diagnostic on the ship's long-range sensors. The Zarkonian communication team watched a holographic representation of the human vessel. Mining lasers continued their precise work, extracting minerals from nearby asteroids. No defensive shields raised. No emergency communication protocols activated. Just continued operations. "Recalibrate communication frequencies," Krelax ordered. "Implement secondary diplomatic engagement protocols." A new series of transmissions began. These were more direct, incorporating visual representations of Imperial might. Holographic displays showed the massive Zarkonian warship, its intricate designs suggesting centuries of technological evolution. Mathematical sequences demonstrated computational capabilities that should inspire awe and submission. Jack Chen glanced at the new transmission, blinked twice, and returned to his mineral extraction reports. "Hey, Marcus," he called out to the navigation specialist. "Are you seeing these weird signal patterns? Might be some interesting stellar communication phenomenon." Marcus Wong looked up briefly, adjusted his augmented reality interface, and shrugged. Probably just background radiation. Want me to run a quick filter? The concept was incomprehensible to the Zarkonian communication team. Their entire cultural and technological framework was built upon hierarchical communication, where each interaction demonstrated clear power structures and mutual understanding of cosmic social orders. These humans were treating a potential first contact scenario like a minor technical anomaly. Krelax felt something unprecedented, a biological response that, in human terminology, might be described as a headache. The Imperial training modules had never prepared them for a species that could be so simultaneously advanced and completely indifferent. "Prepare a direct visual communication attempt," Krelax finally commanded. "We will make them understand the significance of this moment." On the horizon breaker, Jack Chen continued his routine, completely unaware that he was about to become the most confusing first contact representative in galactic history. The Zarkonian Imperial Council chamber defied traditional architectural concepts. Suspended in a gravitational null point, the circular room seemed to breathe with its own living energy. Holographic projections danced across crystalline surfaces, displaying the unprecedented encounter with the human mining vessel from every conceivable angle. High Counselor Zrantok, a being of considerable political influence, shifted uncomfortably. Their neural tendrils, typically calm and precisely controlled, vibrated with an unusual level of uncertainty. The standard diplomatic protocols, meticulously developed over millennia of galactic interactions, had been rendered completely ineffective by a single human communication specialist and his apparent indifference. "Replay the transmission," Zrantok commanded. The holographic display flickered, showing Jack Chen's casual response to the Imperial communication attempts. He seemed more interested in the mineral composition data scrolling across his console than in the massive alien warships surrounding his vessel. Dr. Lyra Volkov, unaware of the political maelstrom she was about to create, began compiling a comprehensive geological survey. Her approach was quintessentially scientific, methodical, detailed, and completely disconnected from any notion of potential interstellar conflict. The first transmission arrived through official channels, a document that would have taken most species decades to prepare. It was a geological survey so detailed, so meticulously crafted, that it momentarily stunned the entire Imperial Council into silence. Geological Survey Addendum, the report began. Preliminary findings of mineral-rich asteroid cluster in Sector 7 Gamma. Potential resource extraction recommendations enclosed. Beneath the clinical language lay a proposal that was simultaneously audacious and matter-of-fact. The humans weren't requesting permission. They were offering a collaborative research opportunity. Counselor Vrina, responsible for interstellar economic relations, leaned forward. Her specialized optical sensors zoomed into the details of the report. The level of scientific detail was extraordinary. Mineral composition charts, spectral analysis graphs, and potential extraction methodologies were presented with a clarity that was both impressive and slightly insulting in its presumption. "They're proposing a joint research initiative," Vrina said, her voice a mixture of disbelief and professional admiration. "Without formal diplomatic recognition, without even a proper first contact protocol." Zrantok's neural tendrils pulsed with a complex pattern indicating multiple simultaneous emotional responses. Confusion, irritation, a grudging sense of professional respect. The geological survey continued for several more pages. It included not just data about the current asteroid cluster, but comparative analyses with other known mineral-rich regions. Embedded within the technical language was an implicit invitation. "We found something interesting. Would you like to learn more?" Most species would have approached such a discovery with caution, with layers of diplomatic negotiation and territorial posturing. The humans seemed to view the entire galaxy as an open research laboratory. Deep within the Imperial archives, historical records were being frantically consulted. No previous first contact scenario matched this approach. The humans weren't displaying aggression. They weren't showing submission. They were simply working. A secondary transmission arrived, almost as an afterthought. Dr. Volkov had included contact information for further scientific collaboration, complete with what appeared to be a personal communication frequency. In case you have additional questions about the geological findings, the message read, followed by what could only be described as a professional courtesy invitation. The council chamber erupted into a cascade of simultaneous conversations. Translation matrices worked overtime, converting the complex neural and verbal communications of various council members. This is a violation of, but the scientific methodology is, completely unprecedented, remarkable data collection techniques. Zrantok raised a single appendage, instantly silencing the chamber. The High Counselor understood something profound was happening. This wasn't just a first contact scenario. This was a fundamental challenge to every established interstellar interaction protocol. The humans hadn't come to conquer. They hadn't come to negotiate. They had simply arrived, begun working, and casually invited collaboration. Outside the council chamber, the massive holographic display continued to show the horizon breaker. Its mining lasers moved with precise, methodical efficiency. No weapons systems activated. No defensive protocols engaged. Just pure, unadulterated scientific exploration. The galaxy, it seemed, was about to be introduced to an entirely new paradigm of interstellar interaction. The maintenance drone hovered uncertainly, its advanced neural network processing an interaction that defied every programmed expectation. Engineer Rodrigo Santos stood beside it, a half-dismantled power coupling spread across a workstation that looked more like an artist's creative space than a precise engineering lab. See, the problem isn't in the core design, Rodrigo explained, his hands moving with a combination of surgical precision and creative intuition. It's in the energy transfer matrix. You're losing about 17.3% efficiency due to these micro-resonance points. The maintenance drone's optical sensors flickered. Micro-calibration algorithms struggled to process the human's unconventional approach. Zarkonian technology had remained essentially unchanged for centuries, each system a perfect, immutable monument to engineering excellence, or so they had believed. Rodrigo pulled out a modified circuit board, its surface etched with patterns that seemed to dance between mathematical precision and artistic expression. Compared to the sleek, uniform Zarkonian designs, this looked almost chaotic. Yet there was an underlying logic that was both beautiful and revolutionary. "Watch this," he said, more to himself than to the drone. A quick series of modifications transformed the power coupling. Where the original design had been a marvel of complex engineering, Rodrigo's adaptation was elegantly simple. The maintenance drone's neural network began to overheat, not from computational stress, but from the cognitive dissonance of witnessing something that fundamentally challenged its understanding of technological development. Around them, the engineering deck of the horizon breaker hummed with a unique energy. Unlike the rigid, hierarchical structure of Zarkonian engineering teams, humans moved with a fluid spontaneity. They collaborated, argued, laughed, and solved problems in a way that seemed almost organic. Sarah Nakamura approached, a holographic display spinning between her fingers like a casual toy. "Rodrigo, you're going to break their entire technological paradigm," she said, her voice a mixture of amusement and professional curiosity. The maintenance drone attempted to log the interaction, its standard reporting protocols struggling to capture the nuanced human approach to problem solving. Humans didn't see technology as a fixed system to be preserved. They saw it as a living, breathing entity to be constantly questioned, challenged, and improved. Nearby, another human engineer was teaching a group of confused Zarkonian technical assistants how to think outside the circuit. The concept was completely alien to them. In Zarkonian culture, technological innovation followed strict, predetermined paths. Each advancement was a carefully calculated step, approved by multiple layers of bureaucratic oversight. Humans treated technology like a creative playground. "The key is to stop thinking about what the system is," the human engineer explained, "and start thinking about what it could be." The Zarkonian assistants looked simultaneously terrified and fascinated. Their entire technological worldview was being dismantled, rebuilt, and reimagined in real time. Rodrigo completed his modification to the power coupling. Where the original Zarkonian design would have required a complete system replacement, his adaptation took less than 20 minutes. The efficiency increased by 42.6%, with a simplified design that used fewer resources. The maintenance drone's communication systems lit up. Urgent reports began streaming to central engineering archives, each transmission carrying the seeds of a technological revolution. Fascinating, Rodrigo muttered, more to himself than anyone else. He pulled out a nutrient bar, took a bite, and continued working. The drone watched, its sensors struggling to comprehend how someone could be simultaneously so focused and so relaxed. Sarah leaned over, reviewing the modification. "They're going to lose their collective minds," she said, a smile playing at the corners of her mouth. Indeed, deep within the Imperial Technological Archives, alarms began to sound. Something unprecedented was happening. The humans weren't just using Zarkonian technology. They were reimagining it entirely. The maintenance drone made a sound that, in human terms, might be described as a whimper. Its entire understanding of technological progress was being rewritten, line by line, by a human engineer who saw the universe as an endless series of puzzles waiting to be solved. Outside the engineering deck, the Horizon Breaker continued its mission. Mining lasers extracted resources, modified systems hummed with newfound efficiency, and human engineers continued their quiet technological revolution. The galaxy would never be the same. The Zarkonian patrol ship emerged from quantum transit with calculated precision, its weapons systems primed and ready. Commander Celerak had been dispatched with a clear mission: intercept and neutralize the human vessel that had been causing unprecedented disruption throughout Imperial communication channels. Holographic targeting systems locked onto the human research vessel with ruthless efficiency. Standard interception protocols demanded a show of overwhelming force, a demonstration that would remind this upstart species of the vast technological superiority of the Zarkonian Galactic Empire. Inside the human vessel, Dr. Weijong barely looked up from his research terminal. "Incoming vessel," Marcus Wong called out casually. "Looks like they might want to play a game of cosmic chicken." Captain Elena Rodriguez raised an eyebrow. "Recommendations?" Sarah Nakamura, the chief engineer, was already 3 steps ahead. Her fingers danced across multiple holographic interfaces, a mischievous glint in her eyes. "I've got an interesting approach," she said. The Zarkonian patrol ship began its standard intimidation sequence. Weapon systems powered up, creating intricate energy patterns designed to inspire fear and submission. Commander Celerak's neural implants calculated potential engagement scenarios, each projection showing a swift and decisive victory. What happened next defied every known military engagement protocol in galactic history. Instead of raising shields or powering weapon systems, the human vessel began what could only be described as a technological infiltration. Sophisticated communication algorithms began probing the Zarkonian ship's systems with a precision that was both elegant and ruthlessly efficient. "Interesting security architecture," Sarah muttered, her augmented reality display filling with cascading lines of code. "Looks like they're using a quantum-locked communication matrix." Cute. Within moments, the Zarkonian patrol ship's primary systems began to change. Navigation protocols recalibrated. Communication channels rerouted. Weapon systems underwent an unexpected diagnostic sequence that seemed to originate from within their own infrastructure. Commander Celerak watched in mounting horror as the ship's most secure systems were systematically examined, analyzed, and then subtly improved. "What is happening?" Celerak demanded, neural tendrils pulsing with a combination of anger and technological confusion. The ship's communication officer could only stare in bewilderment. The human vessel hadn't fired a single weapon. It hadn't raised defensive shields. Instead, it had somehow managed to conduct a comprehensive systems analysis and optimization of an advanced Zarkonian warship, all while continuing its original research mission. "We've uploaded a comprehensive systems diagnostic," Sarah announced to the bridge crew, taking a sip from a thermal mug decorated with a cartoon planet. "Might help them with those micro-efficiency losses in their quantum communication relays." Marcus chuckled. "Think they'll appreciate the help?" "Probably not," Captain Rodriguez replied, returning to her partially completed crossword puzzle. On the Zarkonian patrol ship, Commander Celerak discovered that not only had the humans neutralized any potential threat, but they had also improved the ship's overall operational efficiency by 36.4%. Critical system vulnerabilities that had existed for decades had been identified and patched in less than 17 minutes. The communication logs would later show that the entire engagement had been treated by the humans as nothing more than a routine technical challenge. Quantum communication channels lit up across the Imperial network. Reports began streaming in, reports that would challenge every existing understanding of interstellar conflict and technological engagement. The humans hadn't destroyed the ship. They hadn't threatened it. They had simply seen a technical problem and solved it, with the same casual approach one might use to help a neighbor fix a malfunctioning appliance. "Diagnostic complete," a synthesized voice announced through the Zarkonian ship's communication systems. "Recommended system updates have been implemented. Have a nice day." Commander Celerak's neural implants began to overheat from the sheer impossibility of the situation. Back on the Horizon Breaker, Dr. Wei Zhang had already returned to his primary research. The brief interstellar encounter filed away as a minor technical interruption. The galaxy watched, collectively holding its breath. Something fundamental was changing, and the humans seemed entirely unaware of the revolution they were creating. The Galactic Market Exchange stood as a monument to millennia of carefully balanced economic interactions. Holographic displays tracked trillions of resource transactions, each movement calculated with microscopic precision. Traders from 100 different species moved through ornate trading halls, their negotiations a delicate dance of established protocols and centuries-old economic traditions. Then the humans arrived. Elena Rodriguez's trading team looked more like a group of university researchers on a casual field trip than seasoned economic disruptors. Marcus Wong, their lead economic strategist, wore a worn leather jacket and managed complex financial algorithms with the same casual ease one might use to order coffee. "Look at this," he said, pointing to a holographic market display. His fingers swiped through layers of economic data, revealing inefficiencies that no other species had noticed. The resource allocation models haven't been updated in 3 centuries. The market's senior economic advisor, a crystalline being named Krovax, watched in growing alarm. Humans were moving through established trade routes like water, finding paths where others saw only solid barriers. A small human trading vessel, barely the size of a standard imperial courier, began negotiating a series of trades that defied every known economic model. They weren't just trading resources. They were reimagining entire supply chain concepts. Where traditional galactic traders saw fixed value and rigid exchange rates, the humans saw potential. A mineral deposit that had been considered marginally valuable suddenly became a cornerstone of a new economic strategy. An obsolete manufacturing technique was transformed into an innovative production method. "We're not just trading," Marcus explained to a bewildered group of alien traders. "We're creating value where others see limitations." The human approach was fundamentally different. Traditional galactic economics relied on careful, slow-moving negotiations. Humans treated economic interactions like a dynamic, living system, constantly adapting, constantly evolving. A Zarkonian economic analyst watched in horror as a human trader negotiated a complex resource exchange. What should have been a week-long diplomatic negotiation was completed in less than 17 minutes. The terms were not just favorable. They were revolutionary. Small human trading operations began appearing in unexpected sectors. They didn't follow established trade routes. They created new ones. Where other species saw boundaries, humans saw opportunities. Sarah Nakamura, managing a side project that was technically a trading operation, but looked more like a research initiative, discovered a way to optimize rare mineral extraction that reduced costs by 63%. The approach was so elegant, so simple, that established mining corporations couldn't believe they hadn't thought of it before. The galactic market began to shift, slowly at first, then with increasing momentum. Human traders didn't just participate in the existing economic system, they were rewriting its fundamental rules. Krovax's communication tendrils vibrated with a mixture of professional admiration and existential concern. The humans weren't just playing the game. They were changing how the game was played. They're treating the entire galactic economy like an open-source project. One economic analyst noted, watching a human team collaborate across multiple species communication channels. Transparent, adaptive, collaborative. Trading halls that had remained unchanged for centuries suddenly buzzed with new energy. Young traders from various species began studying human economic strategies. What had once seemed like chaos now revealed itself as a sophisticated, dynamic approach to resource management. A human trading team would arrive at a market, spend a few hours analyzing systems, and then casually suggest improvements that would have taken other species decades to implement. They didn't just trade resources, they created entirely new economic ecosystems. The most terrifying part for established economic powers, the humans seemed entirely unaware of the revolution they were creating. To them, this was just another day of problem-solving. Marcus Wong finished a complex trade negotiation and immediately returned to drinking a cup of coffee, discussing an unrelated research project with a colleague. The massive economic ripples he had just created were, to him, nothing more than a routine task. As market displays across the galaxy began to shift, one thing became clear. The humans weren't just participating in the galactic economy. They were reimagining it entirely. The galaxy watched, simultaneously fascinated and terrified. The Imperial Philosophy Research Center represented the pinnacle of galactic intellectual achievement. Crystalline structures rose like mathematical equations given physical form, each surface etched with millennia of accumulated knowledge. Philosophers from 100 different species spent lifetimes studying the fundamental nature of existence, consciousness, and universal interaction. Dr. Wei Zong sat in the center of this hallowed space, wearing a well-worn sweater and sipping from a thermal mug that appeared to have survived multiple interstellar journeys. To the assembled philosophers, he looked entirely out of place, which was precisely why he had been invited. "So you're telling me," asked Philosopher Prime Zrentak, a being composed of interconnected energy matrices, "that humans view the universe as a problem to be solved?" We smiled. The smile itself was a philosophical statement, casual, intelligent, slightly amused. "Not exactly a problem," he explained, "more like an ongoing conversation." The philosophical researchers had been studying humanity for months, and each discovery only deepened their confusion. Human consciousness seemed to defy every established model of intelligent existence. Where other species saw boundaries, limitations, and carefully defined parameters, humans saw possibilities. Holographic displays tracked human communication patterns, cultural interactions, and philosophical exchanges. The data was chaotic, dynamic, seemingly random, and yet, beneath the surface, there was an underlying logic that was both beautiful and terrifying. "Your species does not fear the unknown," Zrentak observed. It was not a question, but a statement of profound bewilderment. Wei considered the statement. "Fear is a tool," he said finally, "but it's not the only tool. Curiosity is often more interesting." The philosophical research team had discovered something fundamental about human consciousness that challenged every existing model. Humans didn't see the universe as a fixed system to be understood, but as an ongoing experiment to be explored. Traditional galactic philosophical models suggested that advanced species would eventually reach a state of contemplative stasis, a point where fundamental questions would be answered and intellectual exploration would become more controlled, more predictable. Humans seemed to have missed that memo entirely. Every time the philosophers thought they had categorized human thinking, new data would emerge that completely dismantled their previous understanding. Human philosophers didn't form schools of thought so much as they generated continuous, dynamic conversations. "Look at this," said a junior researcher, displaying a complex web of human philosophical exchanges. Unlike the linear, carefully structured philosophical discussions of other species, human intellectual exchanges looked more like a living ecosystem, constantly changing, constantly growing. Wei watched the display with professional curiosity. To him, this was just another fascinating research project. To the assembled philosophers, it was a fundamental challenge to their understanding of intelligent life. "We don't believe we have answers," Wei explained. "We believe we have interesting questions." The philosophical research team struggled to process this concept. Other species saw knowledge as a destination. Humans saw it as a journey, messy, unpredictable, endlessly fascinating. Philosopher Prime Srentak's energy matrices began to pulse in complex patterns. The human before them had just described a philosophical approach that was simultaneously naive and profoundly sophisticated. Humans didn't seek to conquer the universe. They sought to understand it, yes, but more importantly, they sought to play with it. Nearby, a display showed human children exploring a newly discovered ecosystem, where other species would approach such a discovery with careful, controlled scientific methodology. These humans treated it like an adventure. They were simultaneously scientific and playful, analytical, and imaginative. "Your species treats existence like a collaborative art project," Srentak finally said. Wei laughed. "I suppose that's one way of looking at it." The Philosophical Research Center would spend decades analyzing this single conversation. Volumes would be written. Entire academic careers would be built on understanding the subtle nuances of human philosophical approach. Wei finished his coffee, asked if anyone wanted a refill, and continued the conversation, completely unaware that he was rewriting fundamental understanding of intelligent life. Just another day for humanity. The grand diplomatic chambers of the Zarkonian Galactic Empire had witnessed countless historic moments. Massive crystalline structures rose around a central platform, designed to inspire awe and demonstrate the magnificent complexity of imperial governance. Today, those chambers would experience something entirely unprecedented. High Counselor Srentak surveyed the assembled representatives from across the known galaxy. Species that had existed in carefully maintained diplomatic tension for millennia now found themselves united by a single bewildering factor: humanity. Captain Elena Rodriguez sat in the diplomatic space, her posture relaxed. She could have been waiting for a routine meeting, not participating in what would become the most significant diplomatic encounter in galactic history. "We are not here to negotiate," Elena said simply. "We're here to collaborate." The statement hung in the air, a revolutionary concept that defied every established diplomatic protocol. Holographic displays began to show the remarkable journey of human interaction. Not a history of conquest or submission, but a narrative of unexpected collaboration. Mining operations that had improved resource extraction for multiple species. Technological adaptations that had made entire communication networks more efficient. Economic strategies that had opened new possibilities for trade. Marcus Wong, standing beside Elena, began presenting data with the same casual approach he might use to discuss a weekend project. Complex charts and graphs showed how human involvement had created value where others saw only obstacles. The diplomatic representatives watched in a mixture of fascination and growing understanding. Humans hadn't come to challenge the galactic order. They had simply arrived, looked around, and started solving problems. Sarah Nakamura demonstrated a series of technological improvements developed through collaborative research. Each presentation revealed not just human innovation, but a fundamental approach to problem solving that was both humble and revolutionary. "We're not special," she explained, as if discussing a simple recipe. "We're just really good at asking questions and working together." The Zarkonian leadership struggled to process this approach. Traditional galactic diplomacy was a complex dance of power, territory, and carefully maintained hierarchies. Humans seemed to view the entire universe as an open collaborative project. Dr. Wei Zhang presented philosophical research that had emerged from human interactions. It wasn't a treatise of superiority, but an invitation to continuous learning. The assembled species realized that humanity's greatest strength was not technological prowess or military might, but an unprecedented ability to adapt, collaborate, and reimagine possibilities. "We don't want to lead," Alina said. "We want to participate." The statement was revolutionary. Every previous galactic interaction had been about dominance, about establishing clear lines of authority. Humans were proposing something entirely different, a truly collaborative approach to existence. Diplomatic records would later show that no formal treaties were signed that day. Instead, a series of collaborative research initiatives, open communication channels, and shared exploration projects emerged. It wasn't a conquest. It was an invitation. The Horizon Breaker's crew treated the entire diplomatic encounter like another interesting problem to solve. They shared technical insights, proposed joint research projects, and answered complex questions with the same casual approach they might use to discuss an interesting puzzle. Representatives from species that had been in conflict for generations found themselves working together, inspired by the human approach. Technological barriers dissolved. Economic limitations became opportunities. Philosophical differences transformed into collaborative research projects. As the diplomatic session concluded, no one could quite explain how humanity had accomplished this. They hadn't used force. They hadn't employed complex diplomatic strategies. They had simply been themselves, curious, collaborative, and slightly irreverent. Captain Rodriguez finished the diplomatic session by asking if anyone wanted coffee. The request was so mundane, so unexpected, that it perfectly encapsulated the human approach. The galaxy would never be the same. Outside the diplomatic chambers, the Horizon Breaker waited, ready for its next mission. Just another day of exploration, of solving problems, of turning the impossible into the possible. Humanity had arrived in the galactic community. Not with a bang, not with a whimper, but with a casual invitation to work together.